meeting of the Community Redevelopment Agency together. It is August the 15th. Council members, I'd really hope that we can wrap this up by like 5 minutes to 6 so we can transition to the next meeting. So with that, is there a motion to approve the minutes from May 16th?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion of the minutes? If not, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye, and minutes are approved. And Finance Director Jim Ingram is here to present a resolution approving the CRA Annual Comprehensive Financial Report for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2022. Welcome, Mr. Ingram.
Welcome. Good evening, Mayor, Mr. Mayor, and City Council. We have a resolution to approve the CRA Annual Comprehensive Financial Report for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2022. MSL, CPAs, and advisors, the city's auditor, has completed the annual CRA audit, which you have been given a copy. There were no findings in the audit. It is recommending that the Temple Terrace Redevelopment Agency adopt a resolution approving the CRA Annual Comprehensive Financial Report for fiscal year ending September 30th, 2022, and I'll stand for any questions if you have any.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Ingram. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on the audit? Seeing none. Council member questions for the Finance Director?
Do you also? Okay.
Council member Fernandez.
So for the, first off, I just want everybody to know that the actual report is attached to the agenda so that if you want to look at the report, you can go through the agenda and it's there. But in that reporting, there isn't anything, it doesn't include all of the information about what is the taxable, what's the value that's taxable, what's the additional tax that we're getting because it's a tax incremental funding, and then we don't have, I know that we're not doing this right now, but at some point it would be nice for us to talk about like our expectations, what we're looking at into next year with specific to that tax incremental funding and just the CRA district, because I know.
Sure, yeah. We can do that we will have a budget meeting. Doesn't require the two hearings like the annual city budget does, but on September 19th, I think we are planning a CRA meeting where we adopt the budget, and I will just talk a little bit about that in a minute.
That's it.
And we'll have that information for you.
Okay, that's satisfactory. Council member? Good?
Yep.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, very good. Is there a motion to approve the audit?
Move to approve a resolution approving the CRA Annual Comprehensive Financial Report for fiscal year ending September 30th, 2022.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion on the motion. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No nays. The audit is adopted. Resolution passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is a brief discussion of the CRA preliminary budget for fiscal year 2024, and Mr. Ingram will now talk on that item.
Yes, as I mentioned, September 19th, we will adopt the budget. We, right now, it is, we have some numbers. We do need to wait for Hillsborough County to make sure we do have their millage rate, because our millage rates, the county, the Port of Authority, and the city, we all contribute to the CRA. But I believe from what I've seen that it's not going to change much. The county's millage is not going to change much. So I think we have some pretty solid numbers. The good news is that as long as the county doesn't have some ridiculously low millage rate, which I wouldn't expect, for the first time, we should have a reserve going to the CRA. We only have the one loan payment to make. We have been historically paying down the CRA loans with the TIF revenue. And right now, we're projecting about 430,000 reserve for the CRA, for the TIF, which can be used at your discretion, for expenditures, keep in reserve, even paying down more of the debt beyond what is scheduled for next fiscal year. So we will have that on the 19th and have all the details. The value did go up by about 40 million, about $40 million.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Ingham. Is that kind of the questions that you were looking at,
Yeah.
council member? I thought so, yeah. Other questions for Mr. Ingham regarding the budget that we'll be hearing soon? Very good. Anything else, Mr. Ingham?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Very
Thank
good. Next, Business Relations Manager Greg Pauly is here to have a discussion about demolition of the structure at 8447 North 56th Street. Welcome, Mr. Pauly.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, agency board members, thank you for this opportunity to speak this evening on a couple of items. I know that Mr. Ingram just talked about a little bit of a surplus in funds. I have a couple of items for you to consider tonight that, if given proper direction, we can make it part of the proposed budget moving forward. The first item, if I could pull up the PowerPoint. The first item, as you read, sir, in the title of the item, is the demolition of this 8,000 square foot old restaurant structure located at 8447 North 56th Street. This building has been vacant since 2018. It was originally built in 1974, and it's been about a half a dozen different restaurants over the years. It was acquired into the city's folio of property back in 2004. There was a transfer of property during the master redevelopment phase, and then it was reacquired in 2014. And it still belongs to the city, and that picture represents the front of the building pretty well at this point. The property is currently listed for sale by our city broker. As I mentioned, it's been vacant for many years. It's currently in a state of disrepair and structurally compromised. The building itself is simply not salvageable. It would have to be knocked down at some point, regardless of when that occurs. Public Works staff has responded more than 50 times in the last 5 years to board up broken windows and doors. The property has become a target for overnight dumping and illegal trespassing, and police personnel have actually responded a total of 300 times to various complaints and calls over that same 5-year period. Removing the old building will open up the space, providing for a natural surveillance of the property, and diminish or discourage or deter future criminal activity on the property. Will eliminate the negative stigma, the negative feeling and image that old dilapidated building is bringing to our CRA. It will also enhance the overall curb appeal and marketability of the property that is, again, currently for sale, hopefully to make it more attractive towards developers or potential business owners wishing to redevelop that space. The estimated cost to demolish the building is just under $50,000. And with your consideration, and if you wish to move in this direction, staff can include this expense in the upcoming CRA fiscal year CRA budget. And that completes my presentation on the first item.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Pauly. Council members. Councilmember Abel, I'm sorry, Board Member Abel.
I feel like I need to put on a mustache.
Yes.
So I was wondering, I don't need to know an exact value, but I know we have an appraised value for that property. And it might very well be a hurdle for a developer to want to have that property because they have to demolish the building to do anything. But I'm wondering if doing this demolition will alter that appraised value at all, or if it's probably not going to have a net effect.
It has, that building has zero value. Literally zero value. In fact, it has a negative net because it is not, it's not a building that can be rehabbed. It is a knockdown.
So the valuation of the property is based on just the property?
Yes, sir.
Not
Oh, yes, ma'am. You got me with the beard comment.
It's okay. So anyways, let's see. No, that's the only question I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Board members?
I
I
do.
don't know if that's a yes or a no.
Yes.
Okay, Board Member Fernandez.
So have we had any interest in that property to date? Or, I mean, and has the feedback been, well, but this is a consideration, we have to knock this down? I mean, it's a cost of doing business for them. Do we have the actual, I don't want to say data, obviously we don't, but do we have the assurances from our realty group that it is more marketable without the building?
Absolutely. I had this exact same conversation with our broker recently, and the answer to the question is absolutely. I don't have a hard number that we can attach to it because, as you know, the market right now is very fluid and somewhat has slowed down due to the cost of large-scale financing. So that's a whole nother challenge that our brokers are working with potential buyers and business owners to overcome. But as far as the negative impact that this old building has on the property, it has in more than one occasion stalled developers coming forward because they know it is an additional expense.
So when we talk about demolition of the building, what does that actually encompass? Because if you drive behind the building into the parking lot, that's in extremely bad condition. So, I mean, the parking stops are there, the curbs are there, all of that is there, but are we talking about just, because basically what I'm saying is, for anyone to build on it, they're going to have to completely take all the paving, all of the curb, everything away, but are we talking about simply taking the building structure down, or are we looking at doing the rest of the demolish?
No, at this time, we're talking about bringing the building down
Okay.
and returning a rough grade to the building footprint. The developers that have looked at the property are aware that it would need a complete regrade. The pavement that's on the ground is really not serviceable any longer. There's a lot of large old trees on that property that have tore up the pavement quite a bit. So your observation is accurate, but that's not what I'm asking for tonight. I'm asking strictly to take the building down.
So where the building would improve the marketability, we don't have the same concerns about the pavement and the rest of the property. I just want to make sure that we're not like being penny wise, pound foolish.
No, I think I understand your question. And the building itself has developed a very stale stigma for that space. And it's taken away a certain level of marketability, a certain curb appeal is gone. It doesn't exist anymore. As far as some of these other improvements, developers that are going to be developing on commercial property, that's understood. That's certainly understood that those are the things that they would have to overcome with their original site layout.
Okay. That's it.
That's it. I have Vice Mayor Chang.
Thank you. Are we going to be able to recoup any of the $50,000 in any way, or is that just the cost of being safer and to improve the looks of that building or the property?
That is a question that's very difficult to answer because, again, it's going to be dependent on the sale and negotiation of the property. And of course, with the market being soft right now, that's going to be very hard to even give you a justifiable response. It's just too soft of a market to answer that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Board Member Schisler.
Yeah, no, I think that this is this discussion, right? So I have
Well, questions.
Huh?
Questions.
Questions? I don't have a question, I have a comment.
Thank you.
Hold on to it. I'll call
Okay.
you first.
All right, no worries.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So assuming that the board wants to do this, and I'm hoping that they do, how soon can we do this? Because this TIF money is not going to drop on October 1st. We don't collect taxes all on October 1st, but if we get it done on October 15th, we have to pay the contractor that did it. So where's the money come from? I mean, it might be the end of the year before we, well, not the end of the year, but it might be into the fiscal year before we accumulate $50,000 in taxes. Can we get this done somehow soon? Because this is a problem. This building, and it's become more of a problem recently after the demolition of the Whiskey Junction place, whatever the heck that place was. It's become, yeah, it's become worse. It's become more of a problem. So there is a, in my mind anyway, there's a urgency to this.
Good question. There is a quarterly contributions from the general fund that will exceed 50,000 per quarter. So your first quarter, we could make that transfer in October to cover that. And the contributions from the Port of Authority in the county, those usually come in by the end of December.
Okay, so we could get it done?
Yep.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Other questions? Okay, we'll have, if we have a motion, then I'll call on Mr. Schischler first for comments.
I'd like to move to demolish the structure at 8447 North 56th Street.
Second.
Now, clarification, are we moving this forward, or are we moving to make a recommendation to City Council to do this?
I think what you're moving is to have it included in the fiscal year '24 budget,
For the CRA?
the CRA.
Okay.
I'd like to amend my motion.
Okay.
I'd like to put this in our budget for the 2024 fiscal year to demolish the structure at 8447 North 56th Street.
And I'll resecond.
Okay. Motion and a second. Discussion on the motion. Council members, Board Member Schischler.
I think this is something that we need to do. The curb appeal issue, drive down there, it just looks horrible. And, you know, a prospective buyer is going to drive by there and say, I have no desire to be involved with this. It looks terrible. 300 police calls for nothing. I think that, you know, that gets expensive after a while. And someday we're going to have a fire down there and somebody's going to get hurt. So I'm in full support of this
Very
project.
good. Okay. Council, board members, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. We'll put it in the budget. Thank you, Mr. Pauly. You have about 7 minutes, so I don't know how thorny the next issue is,
I'm
but
going to go very quickly. If I could there we go, it came right back up. Okay.
yeah, you might have to consolidate some of them.
Sure, absolutely, sir, I understand. This next item is also a budgetary consideration for the CRA. As you recall, back in June, we had a field public meeting, an in-field public meeting at the property at 205 South Riverhills Drive. We talked about different passive and active uses that the community could use that property for. And again, I apologize, I'm going to go as quick as I can through this. Staff, now, I'm not talking about me personally, I'm talking about collectively, various departments contributed to this. Staff recommends that if the city only wishes to use the property for passive recreational uses with no improvements and no amenities, that we do not touch the property as far as its zoning, and we do not come to you and request any land actions. If, on the other hand, we do wish to upgrade any amenities, active recreational uses, or other improvements on the property, we will need to consider possibly rezoning and or replatting the parcels depending on what exact construction is to take place, as well as we have a sizable right-of-way that cuts through the property, and we may need to look at vacating that right-of-way. In preparation of adding any amenities or improvements, staff is seeking to update our current database, our records and surveys. The current information that you've been previously provided, I don't know if you took note, but it's 25 years old. It's no longer valid as far as modern construction is concerned. Here is a quick rundown of some of the survey estimates. The numbers on this page, everything above the bold line was obtained from one of our consultants on our approved consultants list. You can see the different breakouts there. I won't go through them individually, but you can see that the numbers do add up when you put them all together. And the bottom, below the bold line, is a separate consultant, also on our approved list of consultants, that can coordinate and work directly with an environmental scientist to delineate the EPC, formalize that EPC line between the wetlands and the upper lands. That is also something that would have to be done in the event of development down in that portion of the property. So in this consideration, I propose just slightly over $35,000. And once again, if the CRA board wishes to move in this direction, we can include that in the budget coming forward in the near future. Got through it fast.
And let me just, and I'm not presuming to speak for council, I'm going to ask them here in a second for questions and discussion. Just me speaking here, we had a field trip out there where we had a couple of members of the public that joined with us and gave a little input, but we really haven't had a lot of opportunities for the public to chime in on this. We haven't held a workshop, or we had a limited thing, but it was during the day. That was really more for us to go down and look at this. It wasn't, in my mind, it wasn't a meaningful, I mean, it was a public meeting, but it was in the middle of the daytime, and how many people are going to walk through a field and that kind of stuff. So I personally wouldn't have an issue putting that in the budget, but I think before we decide what we're going to do, whether we're going to need to update the survey or not, we need to have some discussion and public input about, okay, what's our vision? Because we went and looked at it, but we didn't really have a discussion about passive uses, what are the kinds of activity that would be there, and we didn't hammer that down. So personally, I wouldn't have a problem putting it in the budget. That doesn't mean we have to spend the money, but it does mean that it's there if we choose to go that way.
And yes, sir, that's exactly what I'm seeking tonight.
Okay.
Just your blessing on including it in the budget.
Okay. Board member questions?
I have comments.
Okay. Okay. Keep in mind, we have about hopefully 3 or 4 minutes.
All right, so really, my main thing is, I don't have opposition to putting this in the budget, but I don't want, by agreeing to put something in the budget, that I'm agreeing to the activity, because I don't know that this needs to happen right now. I'm going to agree with the mayor on this. We haven't had a lot of discussion about this. We don't really know what the public is going to want to do, and we don't know what we're ultimately going to do. And it seems to me that a survey like this could actually be pushed much farther into being closer to having some sort of, maybe not having a final plan, but having a direction to go.
Well, if I may suggest, why don't you make a motion to that effect, saying that to put it in the budget, but be clear in your motion that it's not necessarily an approval to do the activity until further action's taken.
Okay, so I'm going to move that we place funding for a survey of 205 South Riverhills Drive in the CRA budget, but that survey is not to take place until council gives direction.
Second.
Motion is second. Very good. Nicely done. Thank you. Discussion on the motion.
Yes.
Councilmember Abel, I looked that way first. I'm sorry. I promise you're next.
I was going to say that this might be a good opportunity for the board to recommend to council, and take off our mustaches, that it's probably a good time to consider having a town hall to discuss this, and also a pedestrian master plan. That's all.
Vice
Okay,
Mayor.
the motion says the survey, but there's multiple items. Does that need to be clarified, or,
No, the funding for all of those items
Okay.
would be included.
okay, that's all?
We would either need to do all of that if, depending
Well, I
on
think
which
we need to,
direction-
but she said the survey,
'Cause it
and
says
there's
of
4 or
a
5
s-
different
Yeah.
things in there.
It says a survey on our,
Yeah, I think it would, we put the funding as a placeholder to do all of those
Okay.
things.
As long as we're
We have
good
the
with
money.
that.
If
And
we
we give him
decide
all
we
his
don't need to
money.
do it, we don't spend the money, and
I'm good. I just want to make sure he gets all his requests,
Yep.
not just a survey.
that's included, right? Okay. Other comments on the motion? Discussion on the motion? Okay, board members, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? No nays?
And I promise you, my last item is very fast.
It better be.
The dates for the next fiscal year CRA meeting, we use the same scheduling routine as we have in the past. It's immediately prior to the second council meeting of the second month of each calendar quarter. So if you could please review those, and if they're acceptable, approve these as our upcoming meeting dates.
Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on these dates? Council member questions about the dates? I'm sorry?
I'm ready to make a motion on it.
Okay, go right ahead. Board member Schisler.
Move to approve the TTRA meeting dates as proposed for fiscal year '24.
Is there a
Second.
motion and a second by Councilmember Fernandez? Discussion on the dates? If not, all those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. Dates are adopted. Thank you, Mr. Pauly.
Thank you, everyone.
Is there any other business to come before the CRA board?
I have comments but I'll delay those until the meeting, if Mr. Pauly can hang around. Okay, till the council meeting.
Are you going to be at the council meeting, Mr. Pauly?
I was planning on staying for the Kimley Horn presentation. As you can see, our consultants in the audience. Did you need me to stay longer than that, sir?
Good. I have some questions on the CRA.
Okay,
Okay.
very good.
Good. Other business? Okay, we will be adjourned. Brian, you have 4 minutes.